We're going to kick this off. Everybody hit the got it. We'll start recording. Welcome to tonight's Young Entrepreneur Syndicate uh, coaching call. We're excited to have you here. We're excited to be here. I know Jim and I just spent a couple of minutes catching up on our days, and you know what? I love Mondays. I look forward to getting on this call, and part of it is I'm going to do a quick recap. And I know at least some of you, not all of you, have been here for quite some time, which I appreciate, and I know Jim does as well. But I wanted to kind of circle back real quick and just kind of share our vision, our original vision for doing this and why we're here. And our vision was to bring value. We started off with young, and the definition for young, again, is not necessarily young in age, but young in spirit, or maybe even young in your business journey. So we wanted to reach out to a broad audience, but specifically targeting youth. And we had a vision to bring all of the things we'd learned in the courses of our broad careers and all the people we brushed up against. We wanted to bring that into a package and offer that value to other people so that they wouldn't have to, as Jim always says, pay the dummy tax, right? I've paid my share of those. And I was listening to Alex Hormozy today. I don't know if any of you follow Alex, but he's very successful, very inspirational. And Alex was talking about the fact that he paid somebody $300,000 for a coaching call. And he didn't say what the topic was, but he said, if I can pay somebody $300,000 that they can encapsulate what took them 10 years to learn, what is the value of that, right? To shave off 10 years of hard knocks and learning by spending, he was willing to spend $300,000. So we're investing our time, and we're investing, a small amount of money when you think about it. When you think of the vision, we can broaden our tent stakes. We can stretch this vision out and expand it to all of your visions as well. And I think it's phenomenal when you think about what that is. So again, when Jim and I sat down and said, well, what would this look like? How would we approach this? And it was our vision. We just had a vision to help and a vision to get it done. And we had 4 core values that we wanted to focus on. That was train, coach, develop, and inspire. Those were the 4 things we were going to hit. And some of these, of course, when you're training, you're coaching. When you're coaching, you're inspiring. So there's always some overlap. But it didn't take but a couple of weeks, and we had a year's worth of content built out and ready to go. We didn't have the delivery format or anything else, but we were ready to do it. And tonight's topic is under the coach heading, and it's comparing. So we're gonna talk about the comparing monster, but I'm gonna start off with a few quotes. We used to do this. Here's a couple of quotes for you. The moment you become unconcerned with whether or not you are liked, approved, or qualified by others is the moment you truly become a willing vessel that God can speak and move through. That was Jordan Ward. And here's one: if you don't love yourself, you will always be chasing after people who don't love you either. And this was just an interesting thing I had stumbled across, that a teen's body image improves after just 1 month of slashing social media use. Think about that. So we are constantly, through marketing efforts of other entities, other businesses, we're constantly being forced to compare ourselves to other people. And I know most of the people on this call are also competitive. I know what you've done in the past. I know what you do in your spare time. And I'm always on that competitive drive. I was out in my front yard, not only Saturday, but again today, hand digging dandelions that have cropped up. Why? Because I want my lawn to be dandelion free, without chemicals, and I want my lawn to be the best looking one on my block. And it is. And it's competitive, and it's comparing, right? But I'm using it in a positive way. Now, I could get obsessive with it, and my wife sometimes tells me that I am. And when that happens, she's usually right, and I have to dial it back a little bit. It's like, okay, I don't have to be perfect. I just need to be at a place where I'm comfortable. So here are some of the dangers of comparing. And I want you to think about this, because when I'm talking about comparing, I'm not just talking about comparing your businesses to other people's businesses. And that can be a tough row to hoe anyway, right? When you start comparing, is my podcast up? Do I have the numbers that other people do? Do I have the viewers? Do I have sponsors? Do I have this? Is my shooting competition level up like other people's? Where am I at compared to other people who have only been in business for 6 months or a year? Comparing is one of those things that we can do for business, but we can compare body types. We can compare exercise habits and fitness programs that other people are in, our diets, right? Well, that person eats healthier than I do, or, who cares? That's their business, right? We can even compare our recreational activities. And this is something that I have fought against. I've had people that I had worked with in the past that were constantly trying to get me to spend more time when I was done working with them to go do other things with them because they enjoyed it, whether it was downhill skiing or water skiing or skeet shooting. Yeah, get me on a snowmobile or a jet ski or a motorcycle and I'm all in. But I'm not going to go develop a new habit just because everyone keeps saying, "Oh, you ought to come golfing with us. You should take up golf." Well, I know if I took up golf, and I may have mentioned this before, the reason I haven't is because I know what I would do. I know what my competitive nature is like, and it would be a passion, and I would want to be perfect. And I'd spend every moment I had practicing putting, practicing driving, being on the greens, being on the range. I know what would happen because I have that addictive personality when it comes to wanting to tackle a new project. So I steered clear of that. And I could have compared myself to everyone else. Well, they're making deals on the golf course. People are getting together here and there. But I made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to allow that to affect what I had for me and my family. What I did in my spare time was going to be things that made me happy, not what made other people happy. And that wasn't always easy. And I know some of you have run into that even in your professional careers. So dangers of comparing. Here's the number one danger. And I've got 5 points tonight. So the first one is the dangers of comparing. If you get your pens out, the first one is you don't really focus on your work. When you start comparing, you're focused on somebody else's and not your own. Secondly, under dangers of comparing, you start magnifying your own imperfections. And we all have them. I have a plethora of imperfections. And if I start focusing on them, I could go down that rabbit hole, right? And the other thing is when you start focusing on imperfections, you find other people who will validate those imperfections. You will surround yourself with other negative thinking. It will come to you, it will happen. And the next thing you know, you find yourself in an echo chamber. And I've seen this even in professional. I was in the auto industry for almost 15 years, and they have their own echo chamber. So you've got dealers who go to 20 groups so that they can elevate their dealership, right? They want to elevate their game. So they're going with all the best intentions, but then they're all comparing what they're doing. And they start saying the same stuff over and over and over. And I heard it from multiple dealerships. You could tell who their coach was, who they were listening to, because they were just started echoing the same stuff. Where was the originality? Where was that vision? Where was the fresh vision? They weren't. They were recycling somebody else's vision constantly. It was like being in a spin cycle. And that's what they did. They became part of an echo chamber. And that gets to point number 2, which is comparing is really peer pressure. When we start comparing to other people, We're simply putting peer pressure into play. And we all go through it because the number one thing that people crave from the time they're an infant is to be accepted. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be the runt, right? This is a psychological thing that's built into our system. We want acceptance. And that doesn't change. When we go through our formative years, right up into our teen years especially, peer pressure is huge. And we want to be accepted. And I don't care where you are as an adult, we still carry that old baggage with us. We still are looking to be accepted. And so just acknowledge that fact. There is peer pressure out there, whether it's from the marketing, the advertising, things like we talked about already, or whether it's people in your circle of friends, your business circle, or even in your recreational circles. So just recognize it for what it is. Because peer pressure, when you're in a group environment, peer pressure can be a good thing, right? If your beliefs and your values and your behaviors align, peer pressure is not a bad thing. It's companionship. It's not pressure. But if you start comparing, now you're changing that. You're changing that dynamic. And it really takes some, soul searching sometimes to stop yourself from going down that road. So evaluate your attitudes and your values and your behaviors and conform to what lines up with your values and attitudes and behaviors. And don't veer away from that. And that's how you're going to influence other people. And that's how you're going to influence groups, by staying true to your values and not being the conformist. You look at all the greatest coaches, the greatest players, the greatest business people out there. They weren't conforming. They were nonconformists. They were the ones doing their own thing or doing something that everyone else was doing, but then putting their twist on it. It's the people who don't conform that get out of that comparison trap that are able to make big strides in their business, in their personal lives, right? They're the ones who change the course of history. So a couple of kinds of peer pressure. I'm just throwing this out there. There's direct peer pressure. That's people saying, oh, you need to do this. Sean, you need to come with us. You need to get involved in this. And Fred, you come with us this weekend. You got to see this group. We got to go do this, right? There's direct peer pressure. Then there's also the hearsay, gossip stuff. Oh, well, so-and-so said this about you. Did you know that, you start hearing those little whispers out there. And that's part of that direct, because you're hearing it, it's real. People say things to you directly, like, there's always those cutting insults. Comedians are great with it, right? Just, oh, where did you find that? That new outfit, Salvation Army, where, just those little digs, there are those kinds of things. And we get the direct peer pressure from advertising, social media, marketing efforts. We see all that, and that's direct. That is a form of peer pressure. And then there's the indirect. It's what we think about, what we think others are going to say about us, right? I like to keep myself groomed, right? Clean shaven, like my hair done. If it's not, I'm going to put a hat on, right? I want to hide my imperfections. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not that I'm uncomfortable, but I want to put my best foot forward. I want to put my best face forward all the time. And I don't want people to say, yeah, he seems like a nice guy, but he looks like he always just crawled right out of bed, right? I think about that often with the governor of our state, the great state of Montana. He always looked like he's got two days of stubble on. I think he must just have his razor set at a perfect setting, but he can get away with it. It's not for me. If I look like that, I feel frumpy. So, but that's indirect peer pressure. That's stuff I'm putting on myself, and comparing myself to other people is another form of peer pressure. Okay. So and I'm not just talking about the keeping up with the Joneses. It's like I said, it can be, your diet, your exercise regime. You need to find what works for you, because if it doesn't, all of these forms of peer pressure can lead to discouragement. So under number one, we already had dangers of comparing. You don't focus on your work. It magnifies your imperfections, you end up in an echo chamber. Number two, you get into peer pressure with direct and indirect, and it can lead to discouragement. And that's the last thing you need, is something to interfere with your level of moving forward and upward, whether it's in your relationship, whether it's in your business momentum. You need to stay up and positive. It's a huge thing. So staying away from that comparison trap is going to make a huge difference. So number three, compare for improvement, not conformity. If you're going to compare your business, what you're doing, your lifestyle to somebody else's, do it in a way that can improve your lifestyle or your business or your relationship, not to conform to what someone else is doing. You can get tips, you can get advice, you can get ideas, but to just conform is not going to do you any good. You need to be doing it for improvement, not conformity. Okay, that's number three. And this is something I've spent some time thinking about under this number three. We're instructed, in school. We see this with Jim and I teaching class right now. We see these kids who just want, well, what's my grade? They're working for a grade. They're not working for their own learning. They're not there yet. They're still conditioned. They're so conditioned by school that they're working for a grade. And when we're job focused, strictly business focused and job focused, and we're focused on outcomes and revenues, we're not focused on freedom. Well, I think we need to be more freedom focused as opposed to financial focused or outcome focused. Because if we need to keep that level of creativity, especially as entrepreneurs, we need to be finding new ways, new things, being on the cutting edge. And if we're just comparing ourselves to everyone else, we're going to be followers and not leaders. So some of that is necessary, obviously. We need to be on top of our game, on top of our business. We can't let that stuff slide. But if that becomes too much of a focus and we're comparing our business to everybody else's and our bottom lines to somebody else's bottom lines, it is not going to do us any good. We're going to be out of that freedom focus, and that's where we need to stay. So peer pressure is built on a model because we're always being judged according to someone else's standard, right? If we're comparing ourselves to someone else, we're comparing ourselves to their standard, not ours. And it's what they think is important, not necessarily what you think is important. So comparing yourself to yourself, that's number four. If you're going to make comparisons, compare yourself to yourself. Where was I a year ago compared to where I am today? Because if we just look back a month, we're not going to see a big change. Unless you're working out, losing weight, something like that, you might see some change. You might have a great business thing, sign some new clients or whatever, but that's not long enough. Look at yourself backward. Where was I a year ago compared to where I am today? That's a comparison tool that you can look at. Compare yourself to yourself. And if you need help with that, ask your partner, ask your spouse, right? Ask your business partner. Where do you see my level of attention to detail and focus on what's at hand? And am I still coming up with creative ideas for what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish? Ask the people you're working with. Have you seen improvement? And where has that improvement been? We don't get enough of that. And sometimes we have to ask for that feedback if we're going to get it. And then just be prepared for an honest answer too. That's the next thing. All right. So compare yourself to yourself, because our value, and if you're going to write something down, your value is in your uniqueness. It's not in your ability to conform. It's not in your ability to be like somebody else or be a little better than someone else. Your value is in your uniqueness. And then number 5, last point. Catch yourself and others and challenge yourself and other people to change it up. When you see other people comparing themselves to somebody else's business, somebody else's portfolio, somebody else's this, somebody else's new car, whatever. Step in, be the person to say, you know what? That's their journey. They're on their path. If that's not important to you, don't worry about it, right? Or how about just be grateful and say, wow, great job. Man, you worked hard. I'm glad you got that new car. You know, I know you worked hard. You earned it. I know you've wanted it. You know, congratulate people, but be sincere about it. Don't compare yourself. Just meet people where they're at, and they're going to appreciate it a lot more. That's how you're going to have some value in your friendships. So 5 simple points. And to illustrate this, the last part of this is always a challenge. And Jim and I, when we started teaching, you know, we had an offer to take the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate program into a school, a classic school setting. We didn't have it. We said yes, right? Because my partner has this thing called The Answer is Yes, and Freedom to Say Yes is his book. And I couldn't say no. So we said yes. And that required a curriculum. Well, we didn't have a curriculum. We had a curriculum for what we're doing here tonight, a coaching program and a platform. We didn't have a curriculum for a school system. But we said yes, and we built it. And now that we're almost a year through this, we are expanding that curriculum. We've refined that curriculum. And in order to be able to market that curriculum, I have had to spend some time looking at other curriculums, what's out there to be in the market. So I've looked at them, and I told, I had this Rachel, I'm glad you're on the line. We're going to have this conversation later as well in another meeting. But I told Jim, I said, I can't do it. I cannot write the curriculum, our curriculum, the way others are formatted. I don't like their format. This is what's wrong with this system. This is what's wrong with public education. Why would we want to conform and do what they're doing? So I can look at what's good about those curriculums and model some of what we do after that. But at the end, it's not going to be anything like what you see. If you're buying a curriculum online for this homeschooling or that program or this program, they all have their own set way, and they're all similar. And they all fall flat. Ours is not going to be that way. So again, practicing what we preach, we're looking for improvement, not conformity. And it's hard because it's going to take more effort to sell that to somebody who's used to looking at a curriculum in a certain format. It's going to be a little bit different. So we just have to be prepared to defend what it is we do. And we're up against a challenge like that every day. And that's a big one on the business end. My dandelion thing, it's a pretty big deal to me. If you see me out there, I work it hard. I'm always the first one to have my sidewalk shoveled for the kids going to school, and it bothers me when other people don't. So I have my own issues with comparison. But to me, it's a personal challenge. It's what can I do to be better? How can I make the world a better place? Because that's how I'm going to compare what my legacy is. And Fred, I have to say, I listened to your podcast again today, and great job, by the way. You guys are doing a phenomenal job out there. And I feel so, I don't know, I'm smiling while I'm listening to your podcast, and because it was a legacy. The last thing you want to do is look back and say, oh man, I didn't get this done. What regrets might you have? Well, I can say this. I have no regrets. Every day I get above ground from this point on, it's just a bonus day. I've got more than I deserve already. So now I have to start paying back. I have to start paying it backward because I've gotten more than I deserve. And your podcast, Fred, thanks. It was motivation, because that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because now it's time for me to pay it back. And I'm having a great time doing it. But comparison is one of those things we're going to go to our grave with, I think, but we just have to challenge each other and hold each other accountable to it. Jim, I'm going to throw it over to you. I'm winded.
Good job, Rod. Thank you. Good topic. Hey, Fred, put up in the notes the name of your podcast, in case people don't know what it is. If you've got a website to support that, put it in there too. So Rod, you started out the call talking about, why we formed this group and what our intention was, getting back to the basics in business and things like that. And it's interesting, as I was letting people into the call, I see everybody as a name, and I immediately see their business in my mind as well. And, I was reflecting on a call that I had with a member today about their business and what they're looking at doing. And we were talking about the length of time that it takes to do these things. And, we've used the line, if you want to eat an elephant, it's one bite at a time. But as I'm thinking about some of the names in our group and what they've accomplished, they have literally put in the time to build the foundation of the things that we've talked about in here and have seen success at one level or another on the other side of that. So just to be brief on a couple of members that came to mind real quick, we've got Taylor with their retail business. We've got Bruce with his podcast. We've got Clayton with his new book out. We've got Samantha with their marketing company. We've got Fred with different job opportunities in his podcast. And then we've got Jim Spilson, who's not here tonight. He's got 2 job opportunities and a project that I handed off. And I know there's more. The point is that when you look back in time, and it doesn't seem like that long ago that a lot of these people started these businesses using some of the tools that were here, their wonderful ideas, the culmination of everything, and looking at where they're at now, what they've been able to accomplish. So I want to encourage those that I've spoken to in the last couple of weeks about, build your business plan out, build your foundation. Let's start from the beginning. Let's do the hard work. I want to encourage you to do those things, because if you do the work, you're going to find yourself in the same place as some of those names I just mentioned that are en route to being more and more successful in their businesses. So I'm excited for those businesses to come. And I'm excited to look back at all the people that have started something since they've been here. Sean Fuller, by the way, Sean's on the call. Sean's already in a successful career as an entrepreneur, and he's starting an entrepreneurial business that he came up with some ideas. So super proud of what Sean's doing, especially at a young age. So do the work. It pays off. The point of this group was to give you the tools to do that. And as Rod mentioned, between he, myself, and Rachel, I don't even want to tell you how many years we have collectively to help you do these things. And I hope that you'll tap us for it. I love the topic of the discussion tonight. By the way, please be thinking about your questions for Rod or myself. If you have any, you can put them in the chat, or you can ask us by raising your hand. I love this topic because we all do this. At one time or another, we all compare ourselves to somebody else. And it's the amount of time that we do that is what will get us in trouble. Now, there's a chapter in my book that I talk about putting your blinders on. And the story I talk about is, if you're like a racehorse, you put the blinders on the horse so he doesn't see what's happening on either side of him. All he's focused on is the finish line. And really, it's such an important lesson for us, because if we know what our goals and our values are and our business plan is, we know what that finish line should look like. And if we don't compare ourselves to everybody else, we can be free without distraction to chase those goals. But when we start looking at what everybody else is doing, all of a sudden we're getting squirrely and we move away from what's important. And admittedly, I do that with coaching groups. I look at other groups because I'm in a few. I'm like, wow, they must have hundreds of members. Wow, they must be doing this. They must be doing that. I've been in enough of them now. Matter of fact, I was on a call the other day. This leader has over 2.5 million followers. And I was thinking, man, this person's call must be on fire. Guess what? They had 6 people on that call. Because I'm always looking at, how many people are on the call tonight? 6 people. You got over 2 million followers, you got 6 people on the call. But I get in my own head that they must have something I don't. But then when you see the belly of the beast, it's like, wow, okay, they're no better than I am. We're all doing the work. We're all offering something. Why am I worried about what somebody else is doing? So admittedly, I allow myself to get distracted by other things, and it's how fast I reel back in and focus on what my goal is. And in this case, what our goals are as a company, the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. Now, not only can that be a distraction looking at what somebody else is doing, but it also can dictate the confidence that you have in your pricing. You might look at yourself saying, well, I'm not as good as them. My product isn't as good as theirs. I haven't been in business as long as them. So therefore, I don't deserve to have the same price point that they have. Well, that's bullshit. We deserve, if we're putting out a quality product, quality service, all those things that we've talked about, we deserve equally what they have. So by comparing, we could even get distracted in the value of our offerings. And I would encourage you not to do that, because if you've done the time and the effort and the energy, you deserve equal pay for what you're doing. So don't allow comparing to become a distraction in your life. And I'm going to pick on Samantha because she's here and she's my wife and I can't. But, you know, I've had the pleasure of watching her business grow in the last year. Now, if you've been a member for over a year, you'll remember that she pivoted her focus from retail sales online to a marketing company developing websites, logos, and social media. And when she kicked it off, she had very, very conservative pricing. And I appreciate that that's where she started at. But now the quality of her work and the quality of her clients dictates the value of her work should rise in price and scope. And that's exactly what she's starting to do, you know, because she was comparing herself to others. But man, does she deserve to be paid what other companies are getting based on the quality of her work and her commitment. And again, because I see what happens behind the scenes in her work life, I know how much she's giving for the value of the dollar. So please review and evaluate your own businesses, what you're offering, what you're looking to gain, and don't compare yourself to others. You can use them, as Rod suggested, for a barometer, maybe to get an idea of what the marketplace is holding, but don't bring yourself in under that because you don't think you deserve it. So, Rod, really, really good topic. I'm glad you brought it up. It's a great reminder for all of us. So I'll turn it back to you. And I think maybe somebody was raising a hand.
Yeah, Fred, I see your hand up. Go ahead and unmute.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Fred. You got it.
All right. So forgive me, I'm fighting a massive allergy attack.
Not
the
fun.
weather is beautiful and I feel like hell. So excuse me. First of all, I want to say congrats to Sam on picking up the new account with Taco Bell. That's incredible news. I saw that this morning, shared her post. So congratulations, Sam. And then Jim, your post on the school, you know, they're gonna exercise their full right to protect the children. God bless America. We need more of that. So, and Taylor, keep doing what you're doing, because if we don't fight back, they're just going to keep taking advantage. So cool. But my question is, and I'm struggling with this because social media is a driver now for business, and I'm not naturally a poster, you know. So some people have no qualms sharing their entire life from what they had for breakfast when they brushed their teeth and so on and so forth. So I struggle with the social media, you know, putting stuff up as the company starts to evolve, like Stanford, the podcast, we have our apparel coming in. I just picked up, a couple hundred different hats. We got different colorways and all this nonsense. So now I have stuff to post, but that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? If you have a new product, but I have a hard time when it comes to just like the day-to-day. So I'm looking for some tips, tricks, or tactics on what you guys are doing. Rod, I always listen to your 5 a.m. sometimes pre 5 a.m. call. So I got to commend you for that, because I'm trying to get in the 5 a.m. club. I'm not quite there yet. I'm in the 6 a.m. club. So but I gotta get my shit together, for lack of a better term. So, but I'm just curious because like even my partner in the podcast, he's not a poster. And I'm like, dude, we have to keep posting. And it's like, and it's like pulling teeth for me. You guys have any tips or tricks, or what do you
Well,
recommend?
I'll answer that first, because I was 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, I wasn't on any social media. None, zero, nothing, never had been. No Facebook, no Instagram, none of that. So I dove in and I made one commitment that everything I posted was going to be positive. I wasn't going to, get into the shouting matches about this, that, and the other thing. It was going to be positive. And even if you are standing on something, right, like you and Taylor, and assertive with that, that's still positive. That's not dragging other people down. That's just standing for it, right? There's a difference. So number one, I made a commitment to be positive, and I struggle with it, and I continued to struggle with it. But on this program right here, Rachel was saying, she gives us the tips. This is what they're looking for. They're looking for video. So I said, well, I started mimicking what Jim was doing. He was doing 3 posts a week. And I thought, well, I'll do 3 posts a week. And then I thought, well, I got to put some, I didn't want it to just be sterile and static. So on Wednesday, I started doing a personal post. And then I had my motivational things that I would come up with on Monday and Friday. And then Rachel and everyone else out there in the world is telling us, well, no, you've got to be out there more. So I said, okay, well, I can be out there. I'm up at 5 a.m. Why don't I start doing a 5 a.m. thing? But I wasn't good at videos. And I will tell you right now, there's a young lady, Taylor Claridge, who came over to my house and offered me a free hour plus of coaching on how to use Instagram, because she's mastered Instagram. And everyone who says you have to be on TikTok because of all of their stuff, Instagram has it also. You just have to work and master it. So Taylor took me to a point where I thought, well, I can do videos then. And so I started doing the videos on a regular basis. And so now it's 5 days and even 6 days a week. And I have some in a file. I've probably got 5 other videos I haven't even posted yet. And I've never been ahead of the game, because Taylor told me, film everything, video everything, and then start putting it together down the road. So start building a war chest of material. That's number one. And number two, just do it. If it's 6 a.m. and that's where I find that quiet space before anything else interferes, I found that to be my sweet spot. Find your sweet spot. And then challenge yourself to learn one new trick a week on how to get it better. But here's the other thing. Don't wait for it to get better. Just throw it out there. You know what? We're real people. And I think other people will understand that we're getting started. My stuff leaves a lot to be desired. And you can see in my car, my dome light doesn't do a whole lot for lighting. And I don't care. I did it anyway. And I've had just as many comments on my dark out screens as I had when I'm doing a daytime thing.
Right.
So I feel, and I'm glad you picked up on that, Fred, because I feel so good about what I'm doing right now. Thanks to Taylor, thanks to Sam, and thanks to Rachel for just elevating my game. And I feel good, and I'm getting feedback. People are, in fact, I actually had a call. I might have a keynote engagement coming up this fall because of those videos. Somebody picked up and said, hey, do you do keynote speeches? I think you'd be great for our company. So it wasn't perfect. It's in the dark. I'm talking in the dark, Fred. So no. I think just do it and do it more frequently. And maybe Taylor will give us a seminar at some point.
I was going to say
she's
that
mastering Instagram videos.
Yeah, I find
anyway,
that
I'll turn it over to Jim if you've got comments on that. I know you're great with scheduling.
Yeah. So a couple things. I mean, look, you've got great resources in Rachel, and she's probably biting at the bit to say something. We've given her the night off, although she's listening. You've got Taylor and you've got Samantha, both very good at what they're doing. Samantha's got some insights as to what some of the bigger companies are doing, which is really helpful. My own recommendations are, Fred, too. this is part of your business, and in every business, there's aspects that you don't really want to do, but you need to do them because it's a part of building your success. This is a very forward facing business for you that has to do with your voice and your content. You're going to have to find a distant love affair with posting, or finding what I'll call that social media venue that you resonate with, whether that's Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. And I'm sure Rachel and Sam could give you the most relevant ones. I know Sam's been spending a lot of time on YouTube recently because they also have a lot of tools just like Instagram and the others. But, find what you resonate with, because that might get you to do it more often. I think for Rod, Instagram happens to be a good mechanism for him to do, in his car, etc. But be consistent. I think that Rod's numbers are happening because of his consistency. And you'll find that when you're more consistent with something, it works. I would schedule it. There's a lot of scheduling platforms out there where you can sit in your office. Something I'm okay to share. I know that Rob Bailey with this Clear Calculated, he sits in the studio and he'll record, months worth of videos with his video guy and all the content. And that's what they've scheduled out for the month. Okay. So even some of the best still sit down in one sitting and, record it all and then push it out on a scheduler. So you can do that. Like I said, find what resonates with you. Here's something that's interesting. You talked about your hat, or, how you're going to present yourself. I had this little moment of what I thought was going to be my own clarity. And I said to Rachel, I'm like, hey, do you think as I do more public speaking, I need to stick with this Montana vibe? And she says, Jim, your brand is built. Jim Riley, Montana. She goes, I hear people refer to that all the time. She's like, don't stop wearing your hat and don't change your name. I had like I said, a brief moment of identity crisis. And when I went to New Jersey for that big event last month, I wore my hat and everybody's like, hey, you're Montana Jim, right? Then when I went to Utah, same. So you'll find what resonates with others and what you're trying to promote, whether that's your podcast or your business, and then stick with it and take the time to build that brand out. And if you've used your values to do that, you're going to feel good about whatever that looks like. And by the way, by feeling good about it, you'll be more inclined to post about it. And you're going to find what that zone looks like. I was also looking at changing some of my image on my Instagram. But again, Rachel reeled me in. She says, Jim, people like what you post. Don't change. I give a sprinkling of everything and it's working. My numbers are up. My interactions are way up. When I do some videos, they bounce really, the numbers. So make sure it feels authentic and real to you and stick with it. And that's what's working for me. And then I know I already said this, but I would definitely reach out to Rachel and Sam and even Taylor for some helpful advice. So there's your two long-winded answers.
Hey guys, I'm gonna just jump in. I know my camera's off tonight. I'm sorry about that. I have some other things going on over here, but even in my absence, you're covering this beautifully. This is a lot of what I say. And Jim, I'm glad you told the story about leaning into your personal brand. And I'm glad you guys are talking about the power of consistency and the power of video. And Rod, yes, I catch your videos all the time. I think because people can start depending on those, what you're doing is you're building a relationship with people. And it's really, really powerful. I say that in both in social media and in public relations, consistency is one of the most important things. So I think I've said before that I love Sked, S-K-E-D, as a platform to schedule things in advance. And they're constantly getting better technology. Like they recently made it so that you could preload stories where it used to just be posts. Now it can be stories, and they're talking about preloading reels and making that part of it too. So the next thing I want to say, just as things are continuing to change. So Rod, I know that now you're consistently posting and I'm loving what I'm seeing on Instagram. The next step on that is to start putting them up on as YouTube shorts, same exact content, just one more extra step. Doesn't take long. You can do it right from your phone. You can copy the same words, upload the same video and save it as create a category on YouTube for shorts. And it's driving so much traffic to websites right now. The algorithm is really favoring people who are posting shorts, but YouTube is being really strict about the 60 seconds. So anything over 60 seconds won't go. It won't work as a short. It'll just be a normal YouTube post, and those aren't performing as well as the shorts are at this current moment in time. So, I'll continue to keep you guys updated with what we're seeing in terms of trends. But it sounds like everybody's, putting our advice and into action. So I hope that that's helping all of your businesses. It's great.
Quick question, follow up on that, Rachel, and that is, if I had a video that's a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and I tried to put it on YouTube Shorts, will it reject the whole video, or will it just post the first minute? And
it will post. Good question. It will post as just a normal YouTube video, because normal YouTube videos can be longer.
Right.
Yeah, and shorts are up and down like a reel, right?
Okay.
That's 16 by 9 size, whereas the more traditional YouTube videos are landscape. So they're really trying to compete. And now I've got clients who are running Google ads that are switching money and putting it behind YouTube now because Google owns YouTube. So that's what's happening.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Sam's got a
Sam.
question. Go ahead, Sam.
I think Sean was up first, but I'll take just a minute here. On the social media thing, just some random things I've been learning, and I don't know if Rachel's seen the same things, but with I also help Dana a little bit, Dana Bailey, who's got 2 million followers and stuff, and she's like, Sam, I'm down, like my reach is cut in half. Like half of my people, or like the people who normally see my posts, aren't seeing them anymore on Instagram is what I'm getting at. Sorry, let me clarify there. And I'm also seeing the same thing with my big client, Flag Nor Fail. Like our reach is insanely low right now. So what I believe, and what I've heard on a few other like podcast training things that I listen to that have to do with social media, is now that everybody's being able to pay for their blue check marks, all of a sudden it's throwing the algorithms off. And these people who like were the OG blue check mark people that, went through the process to get it without paying for it. Now that everybody has these blue check marks because they can pay for it, it's throwing off the algorithms like crazy. And so, of course, I'm still doing the same things I would normally do on Instagram, but I'm definitely putting more effort into YouTube, like Rachel was talking about the shorts, but also I'm seeing insane interaction with, not only did YouTube start with YouTube shorts, but you can also do YouTube posts just like you can on Instagram and Facebook, but also YouTube stories. And my stories get insane interaction, and all I'm doing is, posting a picture, nothing crazy. So anyways, right now I would say with everything changing on Instagram and people paying for their blue check marks and throwing everything off, I would totally utilize the benefits of YouTube right now. So that was just my little 2 cents about social media.
Cool. Thanks, Sam. We appreciate that. Sean, I must have missed it. Did you have your hand up?
I may have accidentally put it up, but I thought of a question in the meantime.
Well, perfect.
So,
Perfect. Floor's yours.
For Facebook and Instagram businesses, the Meta Verified is not available to pay for verification yet. So what would y'all recommend to try to get a business account verified right now?
Good question for Rachel or Sam.
Sam just did some research on that too, if Rachel wasn't there.
Sorry, I'm here. All right. Well, why don't we both jump in? I've got 2 directions for that, but Sam, since you just watched that thing, do you want to jump in?
No, I'm good. I'm having a heck of a time with the Meta Verified thing with one of my clients. You go for it, and maybe I'll learn even more. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I have a clarification question. The verification, you're looking for the blue check mark on Instagram. Is that correct?
I'm looking for it on Facebook and Instagram because in Meta, to get access to a verified page, you have to own a verified page yourself, because I'm trying to get whitelisting access to a fairly large influencer. Does that
Got
make
it.
sense? No.
Yeah. So how far are you away from, in your mind, getting verified right now? How far do you think you are in the process?
Right now, we've submitted pretty much every single form that we can. We've reached out to Facebook reps. We have an ad buyer. She reached out to her rep, and we haven't gotten anywhere yet with it. We haven't gotten a single response from a rep that was helpful, at least.
All right. Not surprised, by the way. That sounds absolutely standard. They do not respond to people ever. I mean, I'd be shocked if you ever got a response. This may have been before your time, but a couple of months ago, I put something into our back end of Y.E.S that was a blue check verification steps to take. Kind of like an audit. Did you by chance see that?
No.
Okay.
No, but
So I will reshare it with the group, because there kind of is a secret sauce to getting legit verified. Like, I'm not talking about pay for verified, but
yeah.
the things that they actually really are looking for are pretty intense. So I will reshare it in the Y.E.S memberships back end, and everyone can take a look at it. And it's a framework for what it's going to take. So look at that, and then we can talk more about it.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Boy, great questions tonight. I love it. Anybody else? We've still got a little bit of time here. Taylor has a question. I like it. Raise the hand the old-fashioned way.
It was quicker that time.
It was.
Oh my word. Okay. So many things. I loved the topic. Sorry, this is bad timing. Child is coming up to me and has not this entire meeting. Give me just a second. Yes. So I wanted to speak to Fred's inquiry just briefly. And Fred, I just wanted to say really quick that, first of all, I love what you share on the social media. And what has really helped me is figuring out, like, why am I posting? What is my bottom line? What do I want people to know about my brand? Well, I want them to know about our values. And so I have no issue posting like what I'm having for breakfast, because I want them to know, like, this is the person behind the brand. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but for me, just like figuring out, why am I doing this? What's the bottom line? What do I want them to know about me? And yeah, so that's something.
I got a quick 2 cents. One of the things that was pretty interesting in talking to people that I would run into in town, they think it's a political podcast. And so we've been making it a point to reiterate what we're about is to abolish the divide, as opposed to, create the divide or create a bigger divide between two parties. And so, but it's starting to really resonate with people. And we're seeing an uptick in performance that way, as far as the downloads and resonating with different people, because they want to avoid the conflict, if you will. So, but thank you for sharing that, because it's good to hear. And I like the raw, honest feedback that I'll hear from either people that have listened to it or just having an unbiased opinion, like, here's my natural thoughts on that. So, but thank you.
For sure. No, I love it. I love when you share like posts of your son doing his, what is that called? Cool tricks and stuff. Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's all great and very engaging, and it just shows me like who this is, Okay, so I've really been, I love the saying, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I appreciate that you guys bring that up a lot. And I feel like, Dad, your topic tonight kind of resonates. But as far as, I'll try and be quick because I know that we're running out of time. I feel like I'm in such a different world right now than I ever have been in my entrepreneurial endeavors, where I danced my entire life. Like that was what I did. And then I was able to teach. So even though it was something different and it was outside of my comfort zone in a lot of ways, it was, my profession was related to what I've done my entire life. So even though I've done like retail sales and other random things, I've never put this much heart into anything besides what I've always done. So I feel very uncomfortable, and I'm just being like super honest. I feel really uncomfortable. I feel like everything that I do makes me uncomfortable. So I just wanted to see if you guys could maybe even just share in brief, like a time where you had to do something that was new and uncomfortable, and just maybe some coping mechanisms. Cause I'm like, I freak myself out sometimes.
I'll start just because. Don't think about it. Just do it. You know, my past, I would get bored even if it was in the same industry, 5 years, and it's like I'm ready to try something different. And it was like going to the first day of school every time, but you just do it. And it gets easier as you do it. It really does. It's just like teaching a new dance class is, it's a different class, but you are comfortable with it. You will get comfortable with everything about business. You will get to that comfort level just by doing it. So don't think about it, just dive in and do it. And remember, and you just hit this with Fred, it's personal. When you can see that it's a person on the other end of that, it's not some scary thing. It's just another person. And you saw that meeting with 3 executives all by yourself, right? A couple of weeks ago, right? So just don't think about it. And Fred's got a point here for you as well. So I'll let Fred take it.
Yeah, so I wanted to chime in on what you're saying, Rod, is that even with the podcast, I was terrified to do it at first. And then we get to the 10th, 12th, we're going to be recording our 13th episode tomorrow. But it's weird that how you're just doing the reps and just accepting what it is. And I've had people give me criticism on it, about, oh, you should do this and you should do that. Everybody's got a reason why you should. The biggest reason you should is just to get the reps in. But now on the podcast, I'm starting to find like my really who I am. And it's starting to flow through the talking on the podcast. And it said, I can hear myself. So I was laughing the other day. So I had text my partner, Sean. I was working out at the gym and I'll listen to a podcast, and I just launched a new one. And I go, I got to at least try it out, and I hate hearing my own voice. And so, but I'm on the elliptical and I'm going and I'm listening to it. And I was kind of intrigued. And I was laughing because I kept listening and I kept listening. And so finally I had to stop and I text Sean. I go, it's actually getting a lot better, than what it was. I wasn't like just cringing to hear my own voice or hear the ums or the little mistakes, or if my wheels were turning and I wanted to get the next thing out. So, but anyways, I can appreciate what everybody's doing on there. You're doing a lot of work, Taylor, Rod, you're doing a ton, and I'm seeing everybody just really evolve. Jim's always been an animal when it comes to consistency. So I have a lot of respect for him for that, but it's just, I guess it just boils down to doing the reps. And so I wanted to share that, but I'm seeing everybody evolve on the call, and it's enlightening and inspiring at the same time. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you, Fred.
I'll weigh in real quick. So Taylor, I had a client that was in the retail business selling product, and he was hand selling, which also meant he was hand collecting his invoices. And he was a COD guy, but once in a while a customer wanted to pay later. And he came to me, he goes, Jim, this is so hard. I've got a dozen customers that owe me, 60 days, 90 days worth of money. And it was collectively about $6,000, which is a pretty meaningful amount to him, by the way. And I said, look, why aren't you collecting the money? He goes, Jim, it's hard. I don't like asking people for money. I said, well, you sold them a product, you delivered it on time, you gave them what they ordered. It's part of the process. And he just really struggled with it. So I had to take him pretty deep. I said, look, would you rather feed your family or let him feed his family? Because at the end of the day, that's really what it's coming down to. He's not paying you for something that you've delivered. And I don't want to say that gave him the confidence to go out and collect. But if you're not comfortable or you don't know how to get comfortable making some of these harder things happen, you're going to suffer in business for a long time. So you just have to like Rod said, just do it. For me, I look at what's the outcome going to be down the road? What does 5 years look like from right now if I did all these uncomfortable things? And the importance of writing them down first thing in the morning is that I'll push through them. And there's all kinds of tactics to do the easy things first. And, now you got some momentum to do the hard things, or do the hard things first. And then, the rest of the day is going to be easy. Whatever your tactic is, use it, play around with it, but don't be afraid to get in the habit of doing the hard things. Otherwise, you're not going to find success in being an entrepreneur, because we said it. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So when you see those things that are hard for you, focus in on those things and realize this is the thing that makes me an entrepreneur, not the other stuff. Okay? I promise you it'll get easier because you got a family to feed. Okay. Rod, I'll let you close it out because we're after time.
All right. We are a little bit over time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And if you haven't checked out our podcast as well, the answer is yes. Jim's podcast and the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate is on there just about every other time. We're having a ball doing it, and we do shorts, right? Can we call it that? We try and keep it around 20 minutes. So we cram a whole lot in. It's been an awful lot of fun. So we're branching out all over, and it's nice to see all of you branching out all over as well. You bring joy to my week, each and every one of you. And even if you are listening to this at a later date, know that we appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you next time right here.
Thanks.
Oh, by the way, quick mention, we will be taking Memorial Day off. That's not next Monday, but the Monday following. Okay,
All right.
I just made the call. There you go. Good night, everybody.